We begin the news in Nigeria, where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has met briefly with the service chiefs to receive briefings from them regarding the operations ahead of his proposed trip to India to attend the G20 summit. The meeting, which is a regular routine at the presidential villa, had in attendance the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, his Navy counterpart, Admiral Emmanuel Gala, and Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar. The meeting, which was held behind closed doors at Aborowa Presidential Villa, usually feeds the President in and general security situation in the country, including review of areas where the service chiefs need to double up efforts to close gaps. And Nigeria is considering applying to join the G20 group of major economies. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's spokesman, Ngelale, says government was weighing the risk and benefits of membership before making a decision on whether to submit an application. President Tinubu has travelled to New Delhi, the capital of India, to attend the group's summit at the invitation of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Ngelale earlier said that President Tinubu stands at the G20 summit was to seek foreign investment in Nigeria, mobilise investors and strengthen bilateral agreements with other countries. Currently, South Africa is the only African member of the G20 summit. Now, joining me live tonight at NC Continental Prime in our studio in Lagos is the CEO, Numuv Quest Limited, Joshua Akinbanjo. One welcome to you, Joshua, and thanks for joining us on NC Continental Prime.
Thank you very much for having me. Good evening, audience.
Joshua, the much anticipated verdict of the presidential election petition tribunal is expected to be delivered on Wednesday, September the 6th. The Court of Appeals Registrar confirmed this today. What's your take on this, and what are your expectations?
Expectations on the outcome of the judges?
Yes, the presidential election petition in general.
My position in this over time has always been to allow the judicial process, have its course. We cannot, preempt the judiciary. They have had every opportunity to listen to all the counterparts. So for me, I think I would just want to say, let's leave everything with judiciary and let's wait and receive whatever judgments they have, given all the evidence before them. It's important to actually state that we need to be mindful of not dabbling into judiciary or being seen to blackmail or stampede them, and that's why I want to stay off this in the sense of it.
Thank you very much for that submission. Now let's get back to the issue of the G20 summit in India. What are your expectations for this summit? And let's also mention that President Tinubu travelled with a retinue of aides and business leaders. The richest man in Africa, Aliko Dangote, is also in that trip. What are your expectations for that summit, and what does Nigeria stand to gain?
First, I would say I took a look back at the history of this country, and I've seen several presidents. I had to, just take a little bit back into history. One of the things I found very, very commendable about this trip, I would say, is the sense of responsibility, the sense of ownership that this particular president has. You will expect a president to be a CEO. You expect the president to be the managing director of the affairs of the country. He's actually taking that responsibility. But there's something about CEOs. They are also people who are the business developers and growth hackers of the business. What I see in this is a focus, clarity of focus. The aides that are with him, about 4 of them, and they are very, very, very strategic aides. You're talking about Dr. Bosun Tijani, you're talking about Edu and the 2 others, foreign affairs as well as the one in charge of trade. It just tells you the focus of this particular man, that he has something at the back of his head, which is, look, let's drive the business. He looks like one who closes deal. And that is actually what I see in this movement to India. Let's also remember...
You see it as business-like?
Yes, it's
very
business-like.
business-like.
Very business-like.
Now, Joshua, moving on. President Tinubu is seeking foreign investment in Nigeria and to strengthen bilateral relations with other countries. Looking at his first 100 days in office, do you think he's put those things in place that will make Nigeria an attractive foreign destination for investment, an attractive place for investors to put their money in? And what areas do you think the country needs to work on? Because, I mean, people try to make money, to make profits. We live in a global village, so you really don't need to do a hard sell. If they see that the environment is attractive and enabling enough, they will put their money in. What's your take on this, sir?
When I look at it, I still less than 100 days, incidentally. Little over or around 3 months now in office. You'll find a man who has actually, was very clear about hitting the ground running. And why do I say this? I'm not trying to, patronize, but we're just going to go with the facts. Right on the inauguration ground, he was already working. That was one of the most dangerous decisions any president have ever taken, to take off subsidy. That was a very critical point in the annals of this country. He did that. Tough as it is. But you then look at what are the milestones to date. Number one, you will see how not only has the system been recalibrated, we've had conversations around the forex, you've had conversations around businesses, being, the doing business policy have also been improved upon. But beyond that, you'll notice one pattern. Multinationals, one after the other, day after day, have had to have meetings with him. We're talking about from Mobile to Google to Airtel to virtually all the corporations you're talking about.
It seems his doors are open.
His doors are open. He's very, very much is focused on attracting investors. And that is one of the things I find very, very exciting about this particular administration. And look at the theme of this particular session, okay? He did not only go with those 4 critical aids, not a retinue of 50 or 100 people that have no business being in that place. 4 solid, focused leaders with him, but then extending the array of partners to the private sector, who are the ones that actually will connect to the businesses and the government in those, in this particular summit. And I think that is one of the things that we should find very exciting. There's a beautiful opportunity ahead of us in this country. A great, great opportunity for growth is really ahead of us. There is no other platform to do this than the G20. G20, don't forget, is 19 countries plus the EU. Okay? And if you look at the top 5 countries, these are countries leading in terms of GDPs, in terms of growth, in terms of economic stability. And he's taking Nigeria to tap into 85% of the global GDP. That's what they are.
What does Nigeria, before I let you go, what does Nigeria stand to gain if we do get this membership of the G20? What are the benefits that accrue to the country?
A whole lot. The first one is what I just mentioned. We have access to over 85% of the global GDP. In other words, these people controls 85% of global GDP. They control 75% of global trade. More importantly, you are saying that Nigeria now have access into these countries, into their businesses, into their, their investment. The ability to attract FDI is critical, and that is actually what we see here. The opportunities are so wide. And one of the things you should also note, which is why you have an alake on this trip, I'm talking about the Minister for Solid Minerals.
Solid Minerals.
What are we doing? Nigeria is now taking over the solid mineral state, making it a state corporation, which means that you can now have stability. And so the era of people mining illegally is almost like at a close. So people coming in and having some opportunities to steal from our land is being closed. So you can come in and legally get into this business, and then you have foreign investments really flowing with FDIs.
And this is an area that has been left dormant in the past few years. I mean, since the advent of democracy, and it's nice to see that this administration is looking beyond
Absolutely.
oil. I would like to say a big thank you to you, Mr. Joshua Akinbanjo,
Thank you very much.
CEO Numuv Quest Limited, for your time and insights on the news. Thank you
for having me.